What wedding moment made you think, "They are not going to last long"? Groom got into a fistfight with the father of the bride. Split after 4 months. Context: groom and bride's dad. Actually, most people in these families, if I'm honest, have pretty aggressive drinking problems. Father-in-law has always hated him. I wasn't around for what actually set it off, but it ended when the bride got in the middle, got an elbow in the eye, and the happy couple left for the night. This was in rural Canada. Not Letterkenny, but basically Letterkenny. I'd say the father-in-law won the fight though. The entire bridal party, including parents of the wedded couple, entering into a betting pool of how long the marriage would last, at the wedding reception. IIRC: the best man won, Price is Right rules, at 14 months. I was the best man at a wedding a few years back. At the rehearsal dinner, his future in-laws were treating him like crap. They were bossing him around, making him do crap, and talking down to him. They didn't let him hang out with his groomsmen afterwards while the bride went out and got drunk. They are now divorced. Edit to add a little detail. Yes, he should have stood up for himself. His ex's parents were making him do crap for the wedding the next day and he was too nice to say no. For you youngsters out there, this is cliché, but you really do marry the family and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, a lot of the times. When the maid of honor professed her love for my brother during her toast at my brother's wedding, and her husband walked up to the head table, picked her up and carried her away before she could embarrass him further. They lasted about 3 months after that. My brother and his wife on the other hand are still happily married 20 years later. The groom took the stupid cake thing to an extreme. The bride had given him his bite, and mushed a little on his chin or nose. He then took a piece and mashed it into her face so hard that I was expecting her to end up with a bloody nose. Cake and frosting got up her nose, in her eyes, down the front of her dress, etc. The bride had to go get cleaned up, had her makeup redone, and was ugly crying within an hour of saying, "I do." He didn't give a fuck. I was at the wedding of one of my mum's oldest friends and she clearly had more fun dancing with the best man after the wedding. Long story short, they dated for a while after the divorce. His third wedding. Same venue and same after ceremony driving away vehicle as the first two. The groom and best man had a dancing routine for getting into the church ceremony and they got nearly halfway through it and I guess the groom felt they hadn't received much applause and wows from us the attendees and decided to go back to the entrance and start all over. Sigh. When the groom started off his speech by saying, "We all know I didn't want to get married but we're here for _________bride ______ and _____child we had together ________. 1 year, 3 months later they were finished. Had an old boss who was divorced. He told me once, I should have known it wasn't going to last when the only happy moment I had on my wedding day was when I snuck out to smoke weed with my buddies in the parking lot. When they disappeared for half an hour during the reception. They were both, saving themselves for marriage, and were desperate to bone down. Which is a fine thing to want. But it turns out that was more or less the main reason they got married. They made it almost a year. The bride told her bridesmaids that she didn't actually want to get married. Multiple times. No one told the groom until after the divorce. The groom had a best woman instead of a best man. Nothing wrong with that, but her toast left the whole room in awkward silence because she was clearly in love with him. 2 friends of mine got married, and when they gave their vows, the guy started laughing at the part about being faithful. Oops. When he smashed the cake in her face and hair, then went off drinking with his buddies. In 12 weeks, she filed. Good thing I didn't buy an expensive gift. He complained she was mean to him throughout their dating life. The day before the wedding all of the groomsmen and the groom's friends told him not to marry the girl. Like straight up. They lasted less than a year. The part of the vows where you pledge monogamy? The audience laughed. They got secretly married at the local town hall out of spite to the girl's father who did not agree with the relationship. This happened right out of high school and they divorced during my sophomore year at college. The most beautiful wedding I've been to ended in divorce. Venue was where the groom's father is buried and he cried as he made his vows to the bride there. Turned out he'd been cheating on her for months and they divorced a while later. Something so repugnant about marrying someone you're cheating on practically over your father's grave. To date it's the only wedding I've been to that ended in divorce. I used to work for an event center that hosted a lot of weddings pre-COVID. After one ceremony I saw the groom slap the butt of one of the bridesmaids in the hallway. She laughed and with a big smile said, "Oh Jeremy, you'll never change." Edit. Thank you so much to the kind people who gave me my first Reddit awards. People who take walks at night. What's the scariest thing you've seen? I once saw tiny hands reaching out of a sewer grate. Took me a minute before I realized it was a raccoon. Was up on a hill in the countryside at midnight when a man with a rifle came out of nowhere, ran right past me, and wasn't seen again. I went home shortly after that. Another person walking at night. Iguana fell out of a tree on an unseasonably cool night. A man on a bike passed me and he wore a jacket, shoes, and a hat, but no pants or underwear. At first I couldn't believe that I just saw his bare ass. Edit. Typo. A gigantic mother moose and her baby about 30 yards away. Seeing is scary, but hearing and not seeing is fucking terrifying. What I thought was a body in the woods, and after a bit of back and forth on the phone with the police I returned with a few helpful coppers to find a slightly miffed drunk person who'd had an argument with his missus. Living in a rural village I was taking a late-night walk with my GF. When suddenly we hear aloud what we thought was a human scream. Turned out as was a sheep, jump scared us hard though. A 7-female tall male brown kangaroo in the middle of the footpath. Buff as fuck just staring me down. You bet your ass I turned and went the other way, he just went about his business. I saw a tarantula use a crosswalk as if it was a law-abiding pedestrian. I live in a country town, and I'm male, so I feel reasonably safe taking a nighttime or early morning, before sunrise, walk. If I see someone else we might say good morning, evening as we pass. Never had any reason to be afraid. But one early morning I saw someone come stalking out of the trees as I walked past. It was pretty dark so I couldn't really see much except for an outline, but I had full-on spidey sense, get the fuck out of here, feeling so I just bolted. No idea if I was actually in danger, but you gotta trust your gut on these things. Seen someone overdose, OD, on the sidewalk, not a pleasant birthday memory. A bear right up the street. Or, maybe, an empty baby carriage on the side of the road. Almost 100% sure I witnessed a kidnapping. I was going to get my mail late at night while living in an apartment complex and on the way back I noticed a girl in her pajamas surrounded by a few men right by a car. There was an argument and looked like they forced her in the car and drove off. I found her slipper nearby on the grass. I of course called the police and they came and I let them know what I saw, but I never found out what actually happened. The street I walked down where once there was a cat killer on that street who cut off a cat head and placed it there. Close to Halloween I went on a walk with a family member and a bunch of kids were gathered outside their houses with Halloween masks just staring at people walking by. I was hanging out with a friend one day and lost track of time. When night fell I got on my bike to ride home and about halfway home I saw a figure standing under a street lamp. Being a teenager I said fuck that and went to turn around until I realized I was already too far to turn back, so I turned back around to brave the night and the figure was gone. There was no way he could have ran off in that time without me seeing him. Needless to say I hauled ass home. Not really scary, but once saw two dudes having a legit practice duel with those expensive sturdy lightsabers. A chemically imbalanced bum raving at the top of his lungs, stumbling in and out of the street. He was a literal bloody mess, stunk to Hades. Just me and him on the street at 4:30 a.m. Usually just me and the joggers and that one soccer mom on her bike.